UK has been a Tree Campus USA since 2011. They've been participating. So almost 10 years we've had a commitment to tree care on campus. So to go along with that, bless you, is mulching. And so actually let's step over here to this pile of mulch. Okay, so does anyone have feel the need to get their hand a little bit dirty today? Anybody? Okay, I mean there's room for all of us if you want, but what I want to demonstrate here is find a little nook, and I want you to put your hand about a foot into this pile. There's nothing in here, like nothing bad in here. So if your hand, so you kind of got to get in there a little bit, get in there a foot, and I want you to tell me what you feel sort of in the innards of this pile, temperature-wise. It's warm, right? So how many of you compost or have, you know, has anybody composted food scraps or anything like that?
Tried to.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I'm doing it right.
What was your result? What happened?
Well, I haven't started it like here or anything, but I did it like a few years ago at one of my friends' houses, and I like looked up how to do it, and I put down like this old carpet thing on the bottom of it, and then just put all sorts of stuff on it.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know, like I just feel like I didn't do it right.
Okay. Well, what you just felt is this natural system of composting. And so the warmth that you're feeling is actually the microbial activity that is the same thing that's supposed to happen for composting, to break down all of that stuff. And as this pile sits here, it heats up because of all those organisms, the fungi, the bacteria that are working to break down the wood chips that are here. So that's really important, actually, because if you go into the forest, take a walk in the woods, the entire forest floor is covered with, it doesn't exactly always look like this. Maybe it looks like leaves and branches, but tree parts, right, are littered across the forest floor. Every year you have these additions of, we'll just call it organic material to the floor of the forest. And that's really important and for the health of the trees and the plants in a forest. So I want you to then take that idea and then look out across the bowl of the library. Think about how different this landscape is from that which you would find on the forest floor. So the notion is that in the urban landscape, in the urban forest, a lot of times we consider the carbon inputs, whether it's sticks or leaves or the things that come off of plants and trees, we consider those a nuisance, right? We want to get rid of them because they don't look right or they kill the grass or whatever. But in fact, trees and plants have been a part of that feedback loop of putting leaves and sticks down, and in a few months or a few weeks, a few days maybe, we'll see a bunch of more leaves start to come off these trees. So for hundreds of millions of years, plants have figured out that, okay, this is a good system. We drop all of our stuff, it breaks down, you know, in the soil with all these microorganisms, and then that in turn aerates and allows more oxygen and water to permeate through that soil, through that action. So that's what we want, and that's what we can bring back if we put carbon back on the soil in the landscape through the addition of mulch. So let's walk over to this tree and we'll talk about how to not mulch first. So I guess you could kind of think of this as an example of form over function, maybe. But driving around town, a lot of times you will see this pattern of mulching done on the landscape. Has anybody seen this you probably won't see it on campus, but yes, no, yes, okay. So this structure is aptly named a mulch volcano because it kind of resembles, that. But the problem here is that while mulch is really good at feeding the soil, feeding the microbiology, holding in moisture when it's really hot in the summertime, which those two things go together, right? Life follows moisture. Life follows moisture. So what happens when you stack these wood chips up is you are holding moisture right against the trunk of the tree. And there's a physiological difference between the cells that are above ground on this tree and the cells that are below ground, or the roots. So the cells that are up here are designed to be daylighted and dry, whereas the cells of the roots are designed to be in the dark and in moisture. So the challenge comes when you add that moisture and that darkness up to the trunk, is you can bring in decomposing organisms, fungi, bacteria, things like that can eventually rot the bark, for lack of a better word. So if you see a mulch volcano, you're seeing something that is done improperly, and you should immediately walk up to that tree and start removing the mulch until you can see. Immediately was kind of a joke because, you might want to ask permission first depending on where you are. But the best thing for the health of this tree would be to remove that mulch volcano and daylight the root flare, which, if you can see this, those of you on that side, you might have to step around a little bit to see where the trunk of this tree starts to flare out and turn into those first buttress roots that we're seeing at the base, at the soil level, soil line. So that mulch volcano phenomenon is one of the public enemy number one when it comes to, one of the public enemy number ones, I should say, when it comes to the health of urban trees around the landscape. And a lot of times it's just an aesthetic decision that the landscapers make. We need this sort of freshly looking mulch right on the top around the tree, but it's not for the good of the health. So what you're looking to do ultimately is to have a layer anywhere between 2 and 5, 6 inches is okay, but 2 to 5 inches is generally enough. You want a little space between the trunk of that tree and the mulch so as to not hold moisture right on the trunk. And then as far out as your management will allow in terms of diameter of the mulch ring, it would be fine. A lot of times the drip line or the edge of the canopy is used as a rough idea. So it depends kind of on we were talking about composting. It's kind of dependent on the rate of breakdown. And so in the section before, we were talking about the very question, how often do you do it? And really it's kind of as needed. As the mulch starts to break down and turn into soil, you can bring in a new layer and dress it on the top. And so what you'll see a lot of times when you go to look for mulch is you'll see mulch that is sold like this. It comes in a big 40-pound bag, and it's like black, and it is very fine, very small little pieces and particles. And that's actually not the best thing you can put around a tree, because what happens with this really fine mulch is that it ends up turning into almost, so we've broken this up, but it ends up turning into like a crust. Let's see if I can show you. All the little particles get compacted, and what you end up with is less of a permeable surface and more of a crusty barrier to water, to air. You know, we should break this up today. I'm looking at Brian because he knows we should. But that would be the best. That would be the best option right there, would be to sort of cultivate just the top, break up that crust, and then mulch over with the more coarse chips that are allowing air and water to move through them. The answer is yes. UK does its own tree work. So you may have seen over here the chipper and the machinery that's used by the UK arboriculture team to take care of the trees. And sometimes trees have to be removed, pruned, etc. So they do create a lot of this material. But then also what UK has started to do is to allow arborists from around the city to come and dump their, what's a waste product for them, right? They create this on a daily basis for UK's usage, essentially. So it is, in a way, being repurposed. That's sort of all lumped in the category of inorganic mulch.
Yeah.
And so there's pros and cons, right? I guess a pro would be it's not going to break down. Recycled tires aren't going to turn into soil. But then in the same vein, that can be a con, right? It's not actually contributing to the organic matter of the soil around the tree. But it's probably still contributing to things like soil compaction that are also a big problem. So it does some things. Although I've always wondered about the chemicals in tires. Well, it's got to go somewhere, right? It's going somewhere. So I don't know the chemical sort of processes that they use, but I've always been interested in that. Yeah. But I mean, as far as the health of the tree and the soil, an organic mulch is going to get you there quicker than an inorganic sort of mulch. I guess the one thing to think about with the time of year is that it is a buffer to changes in soil temperature. And so you might want to be thinking about when it's starting to get really cold or starting to get really warm. You might want to avoid that window there, because I guess you could sort of trick the tree's physiology to knowing when to start root elongation and not. So maybe avoiding that window, but other than that, really any time of year is good. Now would be a good time, but see, you know, now, like in the next couple weeks, they're going to get a huge input of mulch, right? From there, so. So rake up all your leaves around around the tree, or just don't do anything, just, because they know what they're doing. They figured it out.